There are moments in every man's life that define who he really is. Moments that separate the boys from the men, the weak from the strong. I thought I knew who I was, until I heard something that shattered everything I believed about my life. What I discovered that night was either going to destroy me or forge me into the man I was always meant to be. I wasn't supposed to hear it. The bathroom door was cracked just enough for sound to carry, and my fiancée Chloe was on the phone with her best friend Madison. What came next would change the trajectory of my entire existence. Girl, I'm telling you, Ethan is just weak. Chloe's voice cut through the silence like a blade. Like, I have to use my rose every single time because he just can't get the job done. I'm literally faking it with this man. Madison's laughter crackled through the speaker. Damn, that's rough. How long has it been like this? Since the beginning, honestly, Chloe continued, her voice dripping with mockery. Thank God for my little pink friend, you know? At least something can get me there. The man thinks he's doing something, but I'm over here planning my grocery list, thinking about work emails, anything but, you know. I stood frozen in that hallway, my world collapsing around me. 2 years of engagement, 3 years together, and this is what she really thought of me? The woman I was planning to marry was discussing our most intimate moments like I was some kind of joke. I backed away, moving silently toward the bathroom, locking the door behind me. My reflection stared back at me in the mirror, my expression blank, but my mind was racing. How long had she felt this way? Had it always been like this? That's when I started seeing things I'd been blind to for years. The way Chloe never asked about my day unless she needed something. The way she'd interrupt me mid-sentence to show me something on her phone. The way she'd dismiss opinions in front of friends with that little laugh that I'd always excused as just her personality. I began replaying conversations from the past year. How many times had she rolled her eyes when I spoke? How many times had she made me feel stupid for caring about things she found boring? How many times had I apologized for taking up space in my own life? But here's the thing about moments like these. They don't break you if you're built different. They reveal who you really are. And in that moment, staring at my reflection, I wasn't devastated. I wasn't broken. I was just done. That night, I lay in bed next to Chloe, listening to her breathe, feeling like a stranger in my own life. She had no idea I'd heard everything. No guilt, no shame, no second thoughts about the man lying 6 inches away from her. She even reached for her phone to check Instagram before rolling over to sleep. I stared at the ceiling for hours, asking myself questions I'd avoided for years. When was the last time Chloe had genuinely laughed at something I said? When was the last time she'd asked about my dreams, my fears, my thoughts about anything that mattered? When was the last time she'd touched me without wanting something in return? The answers were devastating, not because they revealed who she was, but because they revealed who I'd allowed myself to become. The next morning, I woke up before dawn with crystal clear focus. Something had shifted inside me during those dark hours. Not anger. Anger is emotional, reactive, weak. This was something else entirely. This was clarity. Chloe was already gone to her yoga class when I made the first decision that would change everything. I grabbed my phone and did something I hadn't done in 3 years. I put myself first. Before I tell you how this transformation began, if you're tired of being disrespected and want to see how real men handle situations like this, hit that subscribe button. Trust me, you'll want to see where this goes. First stop, the gym. Not the casual 3 times a week routine I'd been coasting on, but a complete lifestyle overhaul. I hired Marcus, a trainer who looked like he could bench press a car. "What's your goal?" he asked, sizing me up with barely concealed doubt. "To become the man I should have been all along," I replied. Week 1 was humiliating. I could barely bench my own body weight. The 22-year-old guys were lifting twice what I could manage. Marcus watched me struggle with weights that should have been warm-ups, and I saw something in his eyes I'd been seeing everywhere. A lack of respect. "Most guys quit after the first week," he said, not unkindly but matter-of-factly. "I'm not most guys," I replied, even though every muscle in my body was screaming otherwise. Week 2. I sat in my car after the gym, hands shaking from exhaustion, and for a moment I thought about going back inside and apologizing to Chloe for everything. For not being enough. Then I remembered her laughter, and I drove home in silence. Day 14 brought my first real test. I could barely lift my arms, and part of me wanted to quit. But I thought about that conversation, about being called weak, and something inside me refused to give up. Meanwhile, at home, Chloe barely noticed my absence during those early morning gym sessions. She'd wake up, scroll through her phone for 20 minutes, make her coffee, and start her day without a single question about where I'd been or what I was doing. That indifference? It used to hurt. Now it was just fuel. Week 4. Chloe made tacos, my favorite meal, but she'd invited Madison over without asking me. I watched them eat and laugh while I sat there like a stranger in my own home. They talked about some drama from Chloe's work, some TV show I'd never heard of, weekend plans that didn't include me. That night, I realized I'd been living like a guest in my own life for years. Week 5. Had my first panic attack in years. Sitting in the shower, water running cold, wondering if I was losing my mind or finally finding it. The transformation wasn't just physical. Something deep inside me was breaking apart and rebuilding itself. Was I deluding myself? Maybe Chloe was right. Maybe I was just weak. But then I remembered something my father told me years ago. Son, you don't build strength by avoiding hard things. You build it by doing them anyway. Week 6. She left her rose charging on the nightstand. Didn't even try to hide it anymore. I stared at that little pink device and understood something profound. She'd replaced me with something that required no effort, no consideration, no respect for another human being. When I tried to initiate intimacy that week, she was tired and stressed from work. But later, when she thought I was asleep, I heard the familiar buzzing sound from her side of the bed. Week 7. Caught myself checking my phone, hoping for a text from Chloe asking where I was, what I was doing, anything that showed she noticed I was changing. The phone stayed silent. That silence taught me more than any conversation ever could. Madison came over for their usual wine night. When I walked through the living room in my workout clothes, fresh from the gym, I caught her staring. Not just looking, staring. "Damn, Ethan," she said, her voice different than I'd ever heard it. "You've been putting in work, haven't you?" Chloe barely looked up from her phone. "Yeah, he's been obsessed with the gym lately. Midlife crisis or whatever." Week 8. Came home to find Chloe and Madison looking through wedding venues on her laptop. "Just getting ideas," she said, not looking up. I stood there for 5 minutes waiting for her to ask my opinion about my wedding. She never did. I went to the kitchen and made my post-workout meal while they continued planning. Through the doorway, I could hear Madison asking questions about the ceremony, the reception, what kind of flowers Chloe wanted. Not once did either of them ask what I thought about the biggest day of our lives. Week 9. Had a breakdown at the gym. Couldn't complete my sets. Sat in the locker room for 20 minutes, head in my hands, wondering if I was deluding myself. Marcus found me there. "Bad day?" he asked. "Bad life," I replied. He sat down next to me. "You know what separates the men from the boys in here? It's not how much you can lift. It's whether you show up tomorrow after a day like today." I showed up. Week 10. Started reading during my lunch breaks. Philosophy, psychology, books about building genuine confidence rather than fake it. Chloe noticed the books on my nightstand and laughed. "Since when are you so intellectual?" she asked with that dismissive tone I'd grown to hate. "Since I decided to become someone worth respecting," I replied simply. She frowned, not understanding what I meant. Week 11. Almost called Madison first when something good happened at work. Caught myself mid-dial and realized I was making the same mistake with her that I'd made with Chloe, seeking validation from someone else instead of being proud of myself. That night, Madison texted me directly for the first time. "Hey, can I ask you something? Girl-to-guy perspective needed." Me, "Sure." "Madison, do you think Chloe appreciates you?" I stared at that message for a full minute. The woman who'd laughed about my bedroom performance was asking if her best friend appreciated me. Me. "Why do you ask?" "Madison, just seems like she takes you for granted sometimes. You're putting in all this work on yourself and she barely notices. People notice what they want to notice. Some people are blind to what's right in front of them." Week 12. Everything shifted. I stopped trying to make Chloe happy. Not in a vindictive way, not with anger or resentment, but with the quiet understanding that her happiness wasn't my responsibility. When she complained about work, I listened without trying to fix everything. When she wanted to vent about her mother, I was supportive but didn't make it my mission to solve her problems. "You're being weird again," she said one evening, studying my face with growing frustration. "It's like you don't even care about my problems anymore." "I care," I said honestly, "but your problems are yours to solve. I can support you, but I can't live your life for you." This was a foreign concept to her. For years, I'd been her emotional support system, her problem solver, her constant source of validation. Week 13, Madison started finding excuses to text me directly. First about workout advice, then about book recommendations, then just conversation. Real conversation about goals, ambitions, the kind of deep topics Chloe had stopped engaging with years ago. "What's your biggest fear?" Madison asked during one of our late-night text conversations. "That I wasted 3 years of my life trying to earn love from someone who was never capable of giving it," I replied. "And your biggest hope?" "That it's not too late to become who I was meant to be." Week 14, the breaking point. Madison came over for their usual Friday night wine session, but this time she was dressed differently. Not the casual clothes she typically wore, but a dress that commanded attention. When I walked through the living room, she didn't just glance. She watched me move with an intensity that was impossible to miss. "Ethan," she called out as I headed toward the kitchen. "Can you settle an argument for us?" "What's that?" "Chloe thinks men don't really change. I think they can become completely different people if they want it badly enough. What do you think?" I looked between them, understanding exactly what was happening. Madison was testing something, pushing boundaries, seeing how I'd respond to her obvious interest. "I think," I said slowly, "that men don't change for other people, but when they decide to change for themselves, they become unstoppable." The silence that followed was electric. Madison smiled like I'd just confirmed something she'd been hoping to hear. Chloe frowned, sensing undercurrents she couldn't quite identify. "Hold up. If you're thinking this story is wild so far, wait until you see what happens next. Make sure you're subscribed because the next part will blow your mind." Week 15, the confrontation I'd been avoiding. I was in my home office, reading Marcus Aurelius, another part of my transformation that Chloe had dismissed as pretentious, when I heard voices in the living room. Madison had come over early, before Chloe got home from work. "Is Ethan here?" she asked. "Yeah, he's in his office doing his intellectual thing," Chloe replied with that familiar dismissive tone. "Why?" "I wanted to talk to him about something." "About what?" Madison's voice dropped lower, but I could still hear every word. "About the fact that you have no idea what you're throwing away." Silence. "Madison, what are you talking about?" "Your fiancé, Chloe, the man you mock to me every other week. Do you have any idea who he's becoming? He's going through a phase." "No," Madison interrupted, her voice firm. "He's becoming the man he was always supposed to be, and you're too busy being dismissive to notice that you're about to lose something incredible." I closed my book and walked to the living room. Both women looked up as I entered, Chloe with confusion, Madison with something that looked like hunger. "Everything okay?" I asked calmly. Madison stood up, smoothing her dress. "Actually, Ethan, I wanted to ask you something." "What's that?" She looked directly at me, ignoring Chloe completely. "Would you like to get coffee sometime? Just the two of us?" The question hung in the air like a bomb. Chloe's mouth fell open. Madison's eyes never left mine, waiting for my answer with the confidence of a woman who knew her worth. "Madison." Chloe's voice was sharp with shock. "What the hell?" "What?" Madison shrugged, finally looking at her best friend. "You've made it clear you don't appreciate him. Someone should." This was my moment. The woman who'd laughed about my performance was asking me out, right in front of my fiancé who'd never shown me an ounce of respect. I could have been vindictive. I could have said yes just to watch Chloe's world crumble. But real power isn't about revenge. It's about choice. Madison's coffee invitation hung in the air like a test, not just of my character, but of everything I'd been building. The old me would have said yes out of spite. The new me understood that real strength isn't about taking what's offered, it's about knowing what you actually want. Madison, I said, my voice calm and controlled, I appreciate the interest, but there are lines that don't get crossed, even when they probably should be. The disappointment in her eyes was clear, but there was also something else. Respect. She'd expected the same guy Chloe had described, someone who would jump at any opportunity. Instead, she found a man with standards. Walking away from Madison's offer wasn't about loyalty to Chloe. It was about loyalty to the man I was becoming. A man who didn't need to prove his worth by taking what belonged to someone else. "You're a better man than you know," Madison said softly, then looked at Chloe with something close to pity. "And you're a bigger fool than I thought." After Madison left, Chloe and I sat in silence for what felt like hours. She kept opening her mouth to speak, then closing it, like she couldn't find the right words for what had just happened. Finally, she spoke. "What just happened?" "Your best friend offered me what you've been withholding for 3 years, I replied simply. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Respect, Chloe. Basic human respect." Her face went pale. "You heard us talking. I heard everything. Every laugh, every joke, every comment about how weak I was in bed, how you had to fake it, how you needed your little pink friend because I couldn't satisfy you." The tears started immediately, but they felt manipulative rather than genuine. "Ethan, I didn't mean—" "Yes, you did," I interrupted. "And you know what? You were probably right. Back then I was weak, not physically, but mentally. I was so focused on making you happy that I forgot to respect myself." "But you're not weak now," she whispered. "No, I'm not. And the beautiful irony is that becoming the man I should have been all along has made me realize something critical." "What's that?" I stood up, feeling lighter than I had in years. "That I deserve someone who sees my value without me having to prove it." Week 16, the final test. Chloe started trying everything to get my attention back. New lingerie appeared in the bedroom, the expensive kind she'd always said was too much money for something you wear for 5 minutes. Elaborate dinners were cooked, dishes she'd learned from YouTube specifically for me. Weekend trips to places I'd mentioned months earlier were suddenly suggested. But it all felt desperate rather than genuine. "I want to work on us," she announced one evening over a dinner that must have taken her 3 hours to prepare. "I want to go to counseling, really commit to making this better." "Why now?" I asked, my voice calm. "Because I love you. Because I realize I've been taking you for granted. Or because you realize other people don't." She flinched like I'd slapped her. "That's not fair." "Isn't it? For 3 years I tried to show you my worth. I tried to be the man you needed, the partner you deserved. You responded by mocking me to your friends and treating our relationship like it was convenient rather than special." "People make mistakes." "This wasn't a mistake, Chloe. This was a pattern of disrespect that I was too blind to see because I was so focused on making you happy that I forgot to make myself worthy of respect." She reached across the table, tears streaming down her face. "Please don't give up on us. Please don't let Madison ruin what we have." I gently moved my hand away. "Madison didn't ruin anything. She just helped me see what was already broken." "So that's it? You're choosing her?" I shook my head. "I'm choosing me. For the first time in my adult life, I'm choosing to be with someone who sees my value without me having to prove it every single day." The goal wasn't to hurt Chloe or prove her wrong. The goal was to become someone who would never again accept being treated as less than he was worth. I didn't want revenge. Revenge is what weak men seek when they can't handle the truth. I wanted something far more powerful. I wanted to become the kind of man who didn't need revenge because he was too busy building something better. Week 17, the end and the beginning. The engagement ended not with drama or screaming or thrown dishes, but with the quiet dignity of a man who finally understood his worth. Madison and I didn't jump into anything immediately. We took 6 months to build something real, something based on mutual respect and genuine attraction, rather than convenience or rebellion. 6 months later, when I saw Chloe at a mutual friend's wedding, she looked smaller somehow, not physically, but in presence. She was with some guy who clearly adored her, but she kept watching me and Madison across the room with an expression I'd never seen before, regret mixed with recognition. Madison squeezed my hand. "You okay?" I looked at the woman who'd become my partner, my equal, Someone who challenged me to be better while loving me for who I already was. Perfect, I said, and meant it completely. Later that evening, Madison and I were laughing about something at the bar when Chloe approached. "Ethan, can I talk to you for a second?" Madison kissed my cheek, making her claim clear but giving me space. "I'll be right back," she whispered. "You look happy," Chloe said once we were alone, and there was genuine surprise in her voice. "I am. I was wrong about you, about everything." Her voice was small, defeated. Madison was right. I didn't know what I had. "No," I agreed simply. "You didn't. Do you think there's any chance?" She couldn't finish the question. I looked at her with compassion, but no confusion. "Chloe, I hope you find someone who makes you as happy as Madison makes me. Someone who appreciates what you bring to the table." "But that someone isn't me." "Not anymore." She nodded, tears threatening. "She's lucky." So am I. As I walked back to Madison, I felt something I'd never experienced before in my adult life, complete peace with my choices. Not because I'd gotten revenge, not because I'd proven anyone wrong, but because I'd finally learned to value myself enough to demand that same value from others. Madison smiled as I approached. "Everything okay?" "Everything's perfect," I said, pulling her close. And for the first time in my adult life, I meant it completely. Because when you stop accepting less than you deserve, you create space for everything you do deserve to find you. But here's the thing most men don't understand. It's not about finding someone better. It's about becoming someone who attracts better. The transformation wasn't just physical. It wasn't even about the gym or the books or the new confidence. It was about finally understanding that respect isn't something you earn by diminishing yourself. It's something you command by knowing your worth and refusing to accept anything less. If this story hit different and you want more content about men who refuse to accept disrespect, subscribe now. I've got stories that'll show you exactly how to handle these situations when they happen to you. And trust me, understanding these dynamics could save your sanity, your self-respect, and maybe even your life. Next video drops in 48 hours, and it's about a man who discovered his wife's affair through her fitness tracker. What he did next will shock you. What did you think about this transformation? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one and love hearing your perspectives on these situations. Did Ethan handle this right? Should he have confronted Chloe immediately? Have you ever been in a situation where you had to choose between revenge and dignity? And if you've got a story of your own about finding your worth and refusing to accept less than you deserve, share it in the comments. Your experience might inspire another man who needs to hear it. Remember, you teach people how to treat you. Make sure you're teaching them that respect isn't negotiable, that your worth isn't up for debate, and that some lines once crossed can never be uncrossed. I'll see you in the next story, and until then, keep building yourself into the man you're meant to be, because the world needs more men who know their worth and aren't afraid to demand it.